Hey beauties, welcome back to my channel. So today's intro is going to be short and sweet. I'm basically just going to be playing in makeup with you guys today and kind of creating this look right here just in time for Thanksgiving. So if you're someone who is kind of stuck on what makeup look to create or what to do, hopefully today's video can give you some inspiration. You can either follow along or add to the look, take away from it, do something totally different. It's really up to you. So make sure you grab your makeup brushes or a snack, whichever is your preference, and let's jump into today's video. So let's go ahead and get started. We are going to start with the eyeshadow today, and normally for Thanksgiving I do something more like orange, brown, copper, bronze, but today I'm thinking to do something green. Now I will be using two different palettes, maybe even three for today's eyeshadow look, but you guys can use any palette or combination of these shadows to create today's look. So jumping in, I am going to first grab my Snap Shadows from Fenty Beauty. So the first palette I'm going to be using is the number 1. And I'm going to take this shadow right here, which is in the center of the bottom row. And honestly, these have shadow names. It's called Come and Get It. So this one right here. And I'm going to start placing this in my crease. But I'm going to use this small M431 brush. It's kind of like a bullet brush if you ask me. Normally I use it for like my inner corners, but I'm going to use this just to kind of map out and outline where I want the shadow to go, which is in the crease but also a little above it. So I'm going to start by just drawing the line first. Then I'm going to take my M506, which is that smaller brush that I really like for detailed work, and without any additional product, I'm just going to start blending out this shadow. I am going to blend back and forth, but I'm also going to blend upwards towards my brow bone. Not completely towards the brow bone, but you know, in that direction is where I want to go with this eyeshadow. So as you guys can see, it has created a little bit of depth within the eye just with that shadow alone. So I'm just going to take a little bit more of this because I do want to build it up a little bit more, just a little bit. And I'm also going to start placing it on the outer corner as well, because I do want to put shimmer shadow on the lid, but I want it to be a cut crease situation. So we're gonna prep for that by just adding a little bit on the outer corner as well. So now that we have all of that placed, I am now gonna take the number 7 palette from the Snap Shadows, and I'm gonna take She Salute, which is this mustard shade right here. And I'm also gonna put that in the crease and a little bit above it just to help blend out the shadow that we previously put down. Now, even though the first shadow that we started with is a little warm, I still like a little extra warmness within the look. Also, yellow is like a must for fall, especially a nice mustard yellow. So I'm just going to use a little bit of this, but enough so that you can tell that it's there, if that makes sense. So I put enough, but not too much where it's not overpowering or anything. And I am using the M429 brush to do this. It's like this little mini dual fiber brush in a way. It's so cute, but I'm just using it with a light hand just to place the shadow up here in the crease, and also using it to kind of extend the eyeshadow on the outer corner as well. And I think it just, you know, adds a very nice element to the shadows that we already have on our lid. So before we place our shimmer on our lid, I am going to cut my crease. Now the holidays is definitely an occasion that I will take my time and really cut my crease for. So we're definitely going to be doing that. I'm just going to use my Nars Soft Matte Concealer in Biscuit, which you guys know I love to use not only to prime the lids and set them, but also to use as my base to cut the crease. So I'm just gonna do that really quickly, and then we can apply our shimmer. Now for the shimmer shadow, I'm gonna go into the Pat McGrath. This is the Ecstasy Sublime eyeshadow palette. And in here is a beautiful olive green, which is this shadow over here on this corner. It's just so pretty, so beautiful. I definitely want to use it for this look. So I'm gonna apply that right on top of the concealer, and I'm gonna take my time placing this. I'm not gonna wet my brush to start, but I may end up wetting it just to do a second more wet layer on top. But let's see what it gives us with just one layer, no spraying the brush, just the product straight from the pan. I think that green is really pretty, but I do want to mix a little bit of gold into it and see what that does. But before we do that, I'm going to go into the #1 palette from Fenty, and I'm going to take this brown shade right here. It's called Affogato, and I'm going to add that on the outer corner and then try to buff a little bit of it into the crease without disturbing the shimmers, and see what that's giving us first. But I definitely think I want to add a little bit of the gold shimmer on top of the green, just to kind of intermix the two. So I'm gonna take my M506, which is the same brush we used for this other shadow in here, and I'm going to just start placing this on the outer corner and flicking inwards. Now I'm gonna take a little bit of the gold shadow in the Pat McGrath palette, and I'm just gonna tap it right on top. Now I'm just going back in with a little bit more of that deeper, darker brown that we used, which was the final shade Affogato, I believe. And I'm just working that on the outer corner, just making sure everything is nice and blended. Now just using a clean Morphe brush, any blending brush really would do the trick. I'm just making sure all the edges and everything is nice and blended and everything looks as seamless as it can, just by running my brush across the entire upper crease area and the outer corner as well. I think I'm gonna leave it like this, and now I'm just gonna clean up my under eyes, apply my lashes, and then we can get started with the base makeup. But so far the eyes aren't terrible. It's definitely not what I had in mind for today's look, but I'm not mad about it. Once I put the lashes on, I'm pretty sure everything will slowly but surely come together. But this is definitely one heck of a green eye. So now that our lashes have been applied, we can now prep the skin for our foundation. I'm gonna go ahead and use my Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Primer. I love this. I always go back to this, especially when I want my makeup to really stick down and, you know, work the way that you want your foundation to work, especially if you know you're gonna have it on for, you know, quite a number of hours. You really wanna make sure that you're setting your face with some kind of primer to help the longevity of the foundation that you're gonna apply. So I'm just gonna apply this everywhere. So now that I have that evenly applied all over my face, I am a sucker for double priming. So I'm actually gonna use my Farsali Skintune Blur. I love this stuff. It is very, very similar to the other primer from Laura Mercier that I like to use, their blurring one. And I kind of like that one better just because the pump on this sucks, but I'm gonna pull out as much product as I can and stick this right here in my T-zone. For foundation today, I'm gonna use the Maybelline Superstay. This is the 24-hour full coverage foundation. And of course, for Thanksgiving, I want something full coverage. I'm gonna use a brush to apply initially, and then I will probably just tap over it with my sponge. But I love the coverage of this foundation. It's lightweight and it lasts, so use whatever foundation, you know, fits you best and works best for you, and obviously something that's long lasting, especially if you know you're gonna wear it for a long time. I just feel like this foundation covers so much surface area with little amount of product, and it really covers my scars and everything very, very nicely without me having to like set them with anything or use any type of color corrector. It really does a great job of covering everything up while still being lightweight and giving you the coverage that you need. Now for concealer, I'm gonna use the e.l.f. Camo concealer. This is the original one, and I'm just gonna place this in all the usual areas that I normally conceal. And this is gonna help just level out everything, because that foundation is not my exact match, but it still works. I'm also gonna use the Camo concealer sponge. I think it's called the Camo sponge, but I'm gonna use that to help blend everything out. Now that we have everything nice and blended out, it just looks nice and flawless. I love that. Let's talk about cream contour. So for that, I am gonna use my Huda Beauty, still in the same shade, which is Fair. And I'm just gonna place that around the perimeter of my face and sculpt it out a little bit just to give a little definition to what we already have. To blend it all out, I'm gonna use my Sigma Bake Kabuki F89 brush, which reminds me a lot of the e.l.f. brush that I have similar to this, which is a little bit bigger than this, but this is a newer brush for me, and I kind of actually wanted to, use it today and test it out just to see if I like it for this step. And so far, so good. So I'm just gonna blend all of this in. I like how this specific contour is a little bit more cool toned versus the Milani Conceal and Perfect, which I also love, but this gives more of like a cool tone effect. The Milani is more warm tone, so in a way it's almost like when I use the Milani, it's more of like a cream bronzer in a sense because it is so warm, and this one actually creates depth and shadow because it pulls more cool. Now let's move on to setting all of the concealer and also the powder. So we're gonna set our entire face. I'm gonna start with the Maybelline Fit Me Loose Powder. This is in light medium, and I'm gonna take that on my sponge to start. And again, this is the e.l.f. Camo sponge, and I'm just gonna press this underneath my eyes, set this area, as well as my T-zone. For the face, I'm actually going to use a little bit of the Sephora Micro Smooth. I feel like I have not used this in a while on my channel, so we're definitely going to use this today. So before we do our under eye shadow and all of that, I am going to set with a little bit of the setting spray from Smashbox. This is their Photofinish Weightless Setting Mist. And I'm just going to spray this just to help melt everything down and into the skin, especially since we use so much powder. We really want to make sure it's locked in. So now let's go ahead and revert to down under our eyes, and I'm going to take the number 7 palette, and I'm going to take Fatigue, which is this green in here. Even though we didn't use it at the top, I'm definitely going to use it at the bottom, and I want to kind of smoke this on my lower lash line. So I'm just going to drag this all the way across and smoke it out. So that brush wasn't really doing it for me as far as like really applying the product to my under eye. So I'm going to use this bullet brush just to apply a heavy amount and then blend it out. Once I have the green placed, I'm then going to take the mustard shadow and I'm going to smoke that on the bottom as well. This look can definitely use an inner corner pop. So I'm just going to use this one in the number 7 palette to just pop in my inner corners. And I might even take this on my brow bone as well. We shall see. It's like a shift of green, white. It's really pretty. For bronzer, I'm going to use my Nars bronzer. This one is Laguna, but it's the matte version. And I'm just going to take a little bit of this and start applying it to my cheeks. Okay, not to go overboard, but I'm going to use the ABH Bronzer in Saddle just to create a little bit of definition within that bronzer and kind of re-intensify the cream contour that we did. You guys know I like to do this. This has been like a go-to step for me lately. Just really gives really nice definition to the skin. For blush, I'm also going to use Nars, and this is the Orgasm blush. This is like a little mini. But I'm just going to pop a little bit of this on my cheeks. I didn't want to use a blush that was too warm toned. So this one is like a good medium if you ask me. So definitely going to use very little of this. Try not to do too much, but it's a very pretty blush. And it also has a little bit of shimmer in it, which is also nice as well. So you don't even have to apply highlight if you really didn't want to. Alright beauties, so this here is the look finished and complete. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. Honestly, this look is far from what I envisioned in my head before I sat down to film today. But honestly, I'm not mad at it. I mean, it came out as good as it could have. Greens are pretty tricky to play with. But overall, I wanted to not only do something different from what I've always done but also just be able to sit down and play in makeup with you guys and give you something to sort of reference, especially if you're in a rough spot and don't know what type of makeup look to do for the holidays. You can start with this and build up from it, or you can do something totally different. But overall, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, don't forget to give it a big old thumbs up so that I know that you guys are enjoying the content that I'm pushing out. As always, any video suggestions can be left in the comments. And with all of that, I am going to close out today's video here. Again, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys in my next upload.